whether they know or they don't know. So, hey, what's your life? It's C. Okay, I'm gonna turn my card to C. I don't really know the answer. But they do that stuff. And if my goal is to understand the way that they think, I'm not gonna tie that to it. Sometimes I tell them that I'm grading them because otherwise sometimes my classes won't do it. Do I actually give it a grade? Sometimes you gotta play a little game. Socratic, which you guys just saw. Socratic can be used for short answer responses. You also could give a test, and it gives you a whole bunch of fabulous data. And I also use it as a discussion technique, because like I said, my students don't like to talk to me. This right here was my saving grace. It's an app called ZipGrade. ZipGrade basically turns your phone into a scanning device for multiple choice tests. And you get like 100 free scans a month, or it's like $7 or $8 a year. Which when I taught those 6 preps at that private school, it's my best friend. I'm very well worth it. And it gives me a lot of data that I can later use. All right, so data and evaluations. This is the most popular framework for evaluating teachers right now. It's called the Charlotte-Danielson model. If you get evaluated on this, you get this whole beautiful matrix of colors, and it'll tell you where your rating is and all that stuff. So this is the most popular one that's out right now. 5 years from now, it'll be a different one, and 5 years from now, it'll be another one, because that's how teaching goes. And in terms of evaluating you, they do it in a couple of different ways. They walk by your classroom, doing what they call a drive-by. See what you're up to. It's not a formal evaluation, but they're seeing whether your students are on task and exactly what they're up to that day. And a fun fact about evaluations, those formal ones, typically speaking, your first evaluation tends to be lower than your second, because just like our students need to be able to show growth, they need to be able to show that you grew as a teacher as well and you got better. So don't ever feel discouraged if that first one doesn't come out super great, or like, I deserve the best score, and they gave you that. They're also kind of in that market as well. As a new teacher, this is new from the state of Michigan. You have to have what's called an individual development plan, which is basically a goal that you set up as a professional. Even though I've been teaching for 8 years, I am only at my 3rd year in the public school, and so I still have to do this because I'm not a tenured teacher. So I had to come up with one this year. Mine was getting kids to talk about stuff, engaging in discussion techniques. You have to set classroom goals, and you have to collect data and artifacts to show those goals. So I'm going to show you a little bit about our expectation. We have what's called a SLOW goal, which stands for a Student Learning Objective. And basically, your SLOW goal and your process is that you should never leave a student behind. They should always master the content area, even if it's not with the pace of everybody else, which is a big challenge. You think about it, like how exactly do I do that? How exactly do I get them all on task and everybody where I need them to be in a realistic approach? So this is a template I found on the state of Michigan, and this is my formal evaluation. This is my current year, and so it is a lot of information. Here are my standards from the next generation science standards that I'm using. And here's my goal. My goal was that I would give a pre-assessment. I would sort my students into groups based on that pre-assessment and how they scored. They'd be in an A group, a B group, and a C group. Now, based off of that evaluation, I would say that 4 out of 5 students in my A group would get 60% or better on the assessment. The B group would get a 65 or better, and the C group would get a 70 or better. I tried to give myself a little leeway in case they didn't make it. And here's the data that I collected on my students. Now this is a lot, and by no means am I telling you have to do this for every single unit, because no one out there does, okay? But this is the sort of stuff that you think about as a teacher. You think about those conversations you're having. You also think about their performance on homework, how they're scoring, how they're doing, how are they doing on informal assessments. Like you'll see I have my Plicker questions here. And Plickr will give you a nice percentage where you can see exactly what they scored right and what they got wrong. How are they doing all along? And this is stuff, now I had to put this in this format because like I said, this is my formal evaluation. And my evaluator wants to see artifacts and data, numbers like this, okay? So that's why this is like this, because it has to be all kinds of numbers and data and things like that. Well, this is stuff I do every day. I look at the grading that they're getting on their homework. And I'm checking it. If they bomb an assignment, there's probably a reason why, okay? And maybe something that I didn't do well and I need to go back on. I like using my Plickr questions because, like I don't give them a point value, so the kids tend to be pretty honest for what they know and what they don't know, and it tells me where I'm at. I set a personal goal for myself that my students as a class get about a 70. If they don't get about a 70, then I go back and I reteach it. I go back over it because I've lost too many of them in that particular situation. But all of this comes together to give you that, or answer that question of what exactly do your students know and what have they learned? And are you getting all of them? Did I get every single student to meet my goal? No. They're over here. My red nose. I didn't get all of them. I got some of them. And some of them that I lost the first time, I got them back. They became yeses. So in the world that we live today, this is becoming a big part of it, is data. And like I said, I'm not telling you guys you have to do this all the time. I only did this because this is what I'm being graded off of as a teacher. Okay, and put it in this format. But do I do these little things every day in class? Yeah. And they're very simple. Those Plickr cards, I use my phone. It tells me the score right away. I get instantaneous feedback. And I go back over it when they don't get it right. If I'm using Socrative, I'm reading their thoughts. I'm trying to understand what they're thinking, and then I can go right to it. I use those tools to help me evaluate where they're at. Sometimes they won't talk to me, and sometimes they will. So, I'm sorry, that was probably a lot of information on here. Do you guys have any questions for me? I've been chatting on for a long time. I give you a lot of stuff.
So are you talking to your students about these goals?
Do I talk
And
to
to
them?
what extent?
So this year, I make my students do, in chemistry, I teach the 10th graders, I have them do notebooks, interactive notebooks. Like I said, my students, they hate the Chromebook. My school likes the Chromebook. It likes me not using paper all the time. So I have them put all their notes into one of those composition notebooks. Mm-hmm. And at the beginning of each unit, I list for them my goals for them at the end of the unit. So it doesn't look the same as what I would turn into an evaluator, because the evaluator goal is going to have language that really the kids just don't get. Let me show you. All right. Where is this next generation science standards? Okay. Here's the actual standard. And next generation science standards, I know that you will have to deal with those. They are confusing as heck to read. So I don't give them actual state standards. I give them state standards in normal people talk. And I'll say balance a chemical equation. So this standard says construct and revise an explanation for the outcome of a single chemical reaction based on the outermost electron states of the atom. Can you write a chemical formula? That's what that means. Trends on the periodic table and knowledge of patterns of chemical properties. Okay. Let's see here. This one says, in a chemical process, atoms that make up the original substance are regrouped into different molecules, and these substances have different molecules, and these new substances have different properties from those reactants. Can you balance a chemical equation? So I put it in simpler language, but yeah, I do talk to them a little bit about it, my expectation.
Do you talk to them about the implications of them meeting these standards on you?
Do I talk to them about...
Meaning do you leverage for the kids that otherwise wouldn't care? They're just nothing,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about any of this.
Yep, I have lots of those.
Do you leverage, hey, this is how it impacts me?
No, I don't. It's not a conversation about me, it's a conversation about them. and their future goals and their life.
Right.
You know, so I never ever tell the kids that this is, you need to do this for me.
Right.
Because
And I
that,
don't necessarily mean it in that
you know what I
sense, but
mean? Like, it's a conversation about them. And this
Right.
is, and it's, when I talk to them about goals, these are things that I want them to be able to do by the end of this unit, and my expectations for them. And they like it because it kind of gives them a context into where they're going. Whereas like, what I need to do from the educator's perspective is a lot more complicated and nuanced, and not something that they necessarily are going to understand or maybe even necessarily care about. You know, if I told them, hey, I need you guys to do this for me so I can get a good grade in my evaluation, I may have some kids that are real jerks and do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
You know, so and I have a lot of very nice kids right now, but I've had some classes in the past that they've probably been like, ha, you know. So no, I don't talk about what my expectation is of them. This is all stuff I do behind the scenes. And my expectation, adapting what I'm doing based off of what they give me. Does that make better sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you, for their goals, like, versus state standards, does that conflict with the, like, the SATs you have to study them for and all that?
So they call those college readiness standards, SAT. They're called college readiness standards. So there are a certain number of college readiness standards that you would maybe be expected to hit on. As a science teacher, I am not on the SAT at all. I am in the sense that there are words on there like hypothesis, and that there are math questions in which they need to plug in numbers in and regurgitate answers. But the evaluation piece is not there yet. What they're working on currently, and they're in the pilot programs of right now, are what they call three-dimensional analysis. So basically, it's a standardized test like you've never seen it before, in that there's not a multiple choice answer. The student's given an experiment, and they have to construct a graph, or they have to drag and drop things onto a screen, and it's very different. And to be honest, they don't know what they're doing with it yet. We're still figuring a lot of this stuff out with NGSS. And for those of you that are social studies, I'm assuming the same thing would be true for that C3 framework when it finally gets passed. It's been a while. We're working on it. But it's there, so the college readiness standards primarily pertain to English and math.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and the SAT is geared more to English and math. And I do what I can to support, but usually that just means doing what I usually been doing. Okay. Other questions? I know you guys have private class soon, right?
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you guys
Thank
for coming if you
Yeah.
have.
Thanks for listening to me jabber on for an hour.
Did you address that 40%?
Oh, I didn't talk about that, no. So the state recently made a law that says 40% of your evaluation has to be data driven. Now, of that, school districts are choosing to go a number of different ways with that, because they're using the state test to determine that. For a teacher like me in science, the state test does not reflect what I teach at all. Well, I guess it kind of does, but I mean, most people could probably guess what hypothesis means without having taken a science class, but that's not necessarily what I'm teaching. So my school district decided to make us all together in that, meaning that every single building, K through 12 in the district, is all lumped together, and it's all of our data all together. So it's everyone's test scores, making up like, I think it's like 20% of that pie. So they've decided to go about that in a different way. I don't know how other districts are treating it, but ours is one for all and all for one approach right now.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, guys. Please take cookies or donuts as you head to your next class. And thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening to me, I appreciate it.